Good evening. This is Dale Matthews, and I'm joined by Mike Jones. Hello, Mike.
Hey, Dale, what's going on?
Well, I just got back from a Grants Pass City Council meeting. And right, it's always a little bit of a rush to get back here for our live show. And I got a chance to get up and tell them the news. We're not going to goof around here. We'll go straight to the news and we'll tell you what it's about, because some of these city councilors did not know this. Last night, at approximately this time, the Central Committee of the Republican Party, the largest party in Josephine County, decided to stand against the levy. And we were there.
Right.
So when I told this to the city councilors and I saw that some of them had not heard this, I'm looking around and I'm seeing Jim Moore, my favorite journalist, from the Daily Courier over one shoulder, and I see Chuck Benson from KJO over the other shoulder. Now,
were they furiously scribbling with their heads down?
Yeah, with their heads down. No, Cheryl's out of town. Neither one of them have reported on this story that happened last night. Now, there's plenty of time. Oh, well, it's a newspaper. Yeah, they've done it before, and they could easily put this story, it is a news story. They could easily put that on their news feed thing that before they publish it, it goes there. On their website. And Chuck Benson, I mean, you and I both know, Mike, I mean, it takes, 30 seconds to write a story. You can even write it remotely from your iPad or whatever and send the story into the radio station.
Absolutely.
Nothing. Now, as of this time, which is 7 o'clock, 7:03 on Wednesday night, there's nothing on either one of these. What?
Yeah, but I think that's a pretty easy one here. These two entities, in case anybody hasn't really figured out, they're pro-Levy, so they're not going to put out a story that might influence anybody to the counter.
They're not going to tell us the news. The news. We're the only people telling you the news.
Yeah. Listen, eventually, I think they probably will say, when everybody else is already talking about it, then they'll say, "Oh yes, well that happened."
Well, I'm at the city council meeting where Lindsay is sitting there.
Oh, so what was the look on his face?
He is a city councilor, and I said, if this vote had come out of the Republican Central Committee, and it was positive, they would have had Lindsay's smiling face on the cover of the Courier, and a great victory, and it would have been a story. Somehow they're filtering your news. Why are you reading the Courier? They're filtering your news. They decided they don't want you to know the story. Not that it's not risen to the level of a story, as another city councilor who used to be the editor of the newspaper told me, well, that hasn't risen to the level of a story. This isn't a story at all, really.
It's almost past being a story because it happened last night, for a couple of more days, it's hot news. And after that, it's a bygone thing, amazing.
There wouldn't be a BadCounty.com. There wouldn't be a need for it if we had a newspaper in this town.
Right.
We don't have that. And so I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're watching this. I'm glad you're watching this either live or afterwards. That's great. But isn't it a heck of a note that in order to get the news, and some of you haven't heard this news, some of you haven't. So where do you go for the news? Well, I listen to KJO. That's not going to happen. Well, I read the Daily Courier. That's not going to happen. This is the only place where you can get this important news. It is important news. It's not dog licks ice cream.
Well, right. The only other place where you might see this is by some individual member of the Republican Party talking about it on their Facebook page or something like that. But as to emanating from a news source, it isn't happening besides right here.
Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing that's important to me personally. Okay, so I get bugged by this. You need to have a vigorous press that keeps track of facts. I mean, I know this sounds so elementary, but obviously it's not. And you need to be sure that you have a press that's not in bed with your local government. They're supposed to be watchdogs. They're supposed to watch over this, not lick the face of the robber as he comes in the door, but, you know, to be there, not laying down with, you lie down with dogs, you get up with fleas. Yeah, right. That's what, it's not that kind of dog. It's the other kind of dog, the kind of dog that's watching. So when there's something important that happens, it's obviously the largest political party in our county, and they've decided to take this stand, whether you think it's a good stand or a bad stand. They've taken the stand, and nobody's telling you about it but us. Really? Really?
Yes, really. Really.
Gosh, that's awful. So, okay, so there were people who got up at this meeting. It was 3-1 in favor. No, 3-1 in favor of the vote, 3-1, the same thing, against the levy. Okay. Now, one of the people that stood up was Rika Brown. Woohoo! They got her working for them, and she endeavored to tell everybody how, well, don't you generally understand that there's an oversight committee and the commissioners are forced by law that they must be sure that all the money goes to the right place? I mean, it's state law. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't really see that being the case. You know, I mean, they talk about having this oversight committee, but they haven't named who they are. And when they do name who they are, by the way, they will have been picked by you know, a coordination process, shall we say. And so I wouldn't expect real oversight from that. They're going to say, what do you want? And we'll tell you that's what we want. And I don't have any that oversight committee, zero credibility.
Oh, now, Mike, those oversight people come from all walks of Rotary Club. What's the matter with you?
All walks of life. Yes, all walks of life. Yes, which means
life.
Absolutely nothing. You know, all walks of life. I mean, do we have all walks of life here in Grants Pass? I mean, what is all walks of life? That's anybody can, you know, I mean, what does that mean? It just means that, oh, you know, this is a coalition of everyone, and we're all working together as a group, and it's really going to be good. You trust us, it's going to be good. Well, it's oversight.
What comes out of this is, if you want to know what's happening in Josephine County politics, and maybe you don't, I don't know why you're watching this show, but I mean, if you want to know what's going on in Josephine County politics, honestly, there's just one place to go. Isn't that sad? I mean, I'm not saying it's sad that you got to go to Mike. I mean, you can come to me, you know, you don't need to go to Mike. But it's sad that we're the only people that are telling you the news, that this is a news story. Now, what I did was I called early this morning, Bill Meyer, with the Bill Meyer Show. Oh, go think. He's in Washington, D.C. Today and tomorrow for KMED, and he's doing some report there. So, but they are allowing some phone calls to come in. And so I called in and I told him the news. He didn't know this. He's, oh, really? Really? Now, I'm not sure that, I think Bill Meyer probably thinks we're lunkheads for voting the way that we have, like 9, 10 times in a row or whatever it's been. But he immediately recognized, as do you, that this is a story.
Right.
It's easy to see it's a story. So the question you need to ask yourself is, why does the Daily Courier and KJO, why do they not want you to know what the news is? They're hiding it from you. Well, they put a news blackout on this story. Why would they do that?
Yeah, I don't understand really what motivates them. I mean, I've been going to enough of the county meetings to see that there is the bar has to get pretty high for them to write a story about it in the Courier. Almost nothing. And there's been some pretty eventful things happen that they just absolutely ignored. So what is the point? Why is Jim Moore even coming there? I mean, he could just watch the thing on closed circuit TV like half of the other people do, and just go, well, okay, yeah, as usual, nothing's happening, and then he could sit there and have his secretary bring him coffee or whatever.
Well, with his predecessor, I asked her, I said, you may recall, I mentioned this on the show. I said, boy, this is a really eventful time. The citizens are saying a lot of things and they got a couple of good points. Yeah. No, I don't report about what the citizens say. You don't? No, 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 no. I call and then I talk with one of the commissioners and they kind of fill me in. Why don't you just
Right.
have them write the
Yes.
dang
So
story?
you know what other citizens are saying, that wouldn't be of any interest to other citizens. I don't think so.
No. But by the way, it seems fairly obvious to those of you who've watched our show before. We've got a little delay between Mike and I here, and so there may be some times where it sounds like I'm being rude. Perhaps I am, but I'm not
Yes.
meaning to be. And Mike's doing the best that he can.
Oh,
to
yes, he
keep up.
is.
Yes, he's doing the best that he can to keep up. He didn't catch that joke. Okay, so we went to this. We were invited to this Republican Central Committee meeting last night. There were approximately 60 to 65 people in the room. It was a relatively small room, so there was standing room only. And we were there for the whole thing. Now, there were a couple of people who were very upset that we were there. I'm not a Republican. I'm also not a Democrat. I'm an independent. Mike is not a Republican. He used to be a Republican. He's an independent. So there were people, well, they're going to give away our secrets or something like that. They don't have any secrets. Perhaps the process should be the secret. I could kind of understand why they wouldn't want anyone to take pictures, although it seems like everybody had a cell phone.
Listen, there was some sausage making there. And, and that is, you know, I mean, that's, I suspect that happens in any of these political party meetings. You have this type of thing happening between certain factions. Although I would say, if I had to guess, I would say the Democrats are a little bit more locksteppy as they have been. You know, I can only go by outward appearances in the past, you know, 30 something years that I've been observing. It seems to me that they get a message and they all spout it. It doesn't matter what. There's an end in mind, and you know, everybody march in lockstep to get there. That hasn't been the case in the Republican Party, and the split was pretty evident last night. But
hence my drawing over my shoulder here.
Yes.
The biggest battle in Josephine County is not between Republicans and Democrats. Republicans won that a long time ago. It's between Republicans and Republicans. And there's at least 3 Republican parties in factions that are powerful within Josephine County. So something happening with the Republican Party, I'm going to try to say this for the last time, is news, especially on an item like this, because when have they done this before, taken this kind of strong stand? Now, Mike and I agreed that when we went there that we weren't going to stand up and make a speech or even ask any questions. You know, we might mutter to each other. But Mike had some strong opinions about the Republicans taking a stand. Why don't you tell us about that, Mike?
Yeah, listen. This is why I left the Republican Party, is because they don't seem to have the huevos to take a stand on almost anything, because as soon as somebody objects to the stand that they're taking, they go, oh, wait a minute, I didn't mean to offend anybody. I'll back down. Where do you want me to stand? You know, it's kind of a sad thing. And so, you know, I wanted to be there to watch these people make a decision on what they think is a controversial. I don't really think it is all that controversial amongst Josephine County residents who have been, you know, dropping the hammer on these levy pushes for the past 10 years. So I don't think this is hugely controversial. I think that it would be beneficial for the Republicans to come out one way or another on the levy to you know, help to influence people. And it just turns out that the majority of the party is not for it.
So when we say majority, it was approximately the same percentage in their vote of the Republican Central Committee, and the only people who could vote were PCPs, precinct committee persons. Okay. And it was approximately the same percentage as it was on the junk ordinances, about 80% to 20%. That's a solid drubbing.
Yeah.
And if that vote could have taken place 2 weeks ago. But what happened was, Mike was talking about walking lockstep, okay, and about having differences. There was somebody who got up and said, let's think about party unity and everything. So in the spirit of party unity, they decided to postpone a vote that was pretty apparent the way it was going to go last time. And there were a lot of very, very angry people who, if they weren't going to get their way from this process that we have in America, we call it a vote, and they had the same attitude then as they've had about the levy. I voted for the levy twice. And then at the third time it came through and went, wait a minute, didn't we just vote about this? I mean, oh no, this is completely different. No, it's not. And that's when I knew this is voter abuse. And now it's been several times later. And if they don't like the vote, they insist you take a vote again. And this has happened.
And if it doesn't go their way, they pick up their ball and they go home.
Well, this is why I've said some things about Harry Mackin. Now, I wasn't there when it first happened with Harry Mackin. We have to depend on witnesses who are there. So 2 separate people came to me and said, this is what happened with Harry Mackin at a meeting of the Republican Central Committee. It's since joined by a third person. See, and I thought the 2 main players were Harry Mackin and Roy Lindsay. As it turns out, it was Harry Mackin and Keith Trahern. Here he is with his wife, Nancy, and this is an old compilation photo with some people in the background that have been airbrushed out. Okay, true disclosure, but that is them. Okay, so don't worry. Oh, the light looks like it's cut in half. Shut up. Okay, this is Keith and Nancy Trahern. Now, so Keith was very upset with that previous vote, as was Harry Mackin, very loudly so. And so there were a number of people who were saying, hey, didn't we just take a vote? Well, that vote's been nullified. It's been nullified? What? This is America? That's been nullified? So I mentioned it at a weekly business session. Now, fast forward to this vote that almost took place 2 weeks ago. There were people, including Keith and Nancy Trahern and this divided elephant, who said, hey, we don't like the way this vote's going. And one of them was Roy Lindsay, and another one was Harry Mackin. And I think Connie Roach had something to say. I believe that she did. Yeah, I think so. And there was a presentation that was being made by the other side from them, but keeping in the tradition of the majority of the people in the Republican Central Committee. And it was Joseph Rice and it was Bill Hunker, who comes on our show. Mike, at the end of their presentation, and Connie Roach and Keith Trahern kept interrupting. And finally, somebody said, hey, wait a minute. Would you let them finish their presentation? But they couldn't stop themselves. They still had to do it. Now, I'm finding all the meetings that I've been to, and I think for you too, Mike, we never see that from people who are anti-levy. And this particular fight, we're only seeing that level of rudeness. Who am I to talk about rude, right? Oh, you're not telling us the truth, Commissioner. That's rude to say you're not telling, it's rude to play a video. I don't think so, but okay, you can have your opinion. But they're stopping them in their discussion. So at the end, Bill Hunker had a little face-to-face with
Harry Mackin. Yeah.
Harry Mackin, and tell everybody what was said there, Mike.
Well, I think Harry Mackin told Bill Hunker to go to hell, and Bill turned right around and said, "I'll see you there."
So this happened again last night.
Yes,
I
was amazed about this. This level of vitriol is just unreal.
So tell them what happened on that. Good. Tell them
right. And if I don't get all the dialogue correct here, you correct me. But I think Nancy was upset about the vote, and somehow she came into view of Vivian, and Vivian said, "Hey, I guess it's all my fault." And Nancy said, "You go to hell. That's where you belong." And Vivian's there with her mouth open, like, what is going on here? Uh,
You know, I'm personally upset, and I'll get over it, but I'm personally upset about people who would prefer that God turn his face away from you and that you end up in the nether regions forever. Really? Really? I hope that
wow,
God
it's
turns his face away from you. Oh, yeah. Because of this
yeah,
stupid vote
right.
on this
Yeah,
thing?
you right. Yes. I think that you'll find in the afterlife that which way the Republican Party stood on this particular issue is going to be of little consequence.
So, okay. So I'm strange. I admit it. Okay. Big headlines. I've never, ever told somebody to go to hell. Not ever. Not ever. You know,
I
I
may
take
have
this
once or
thing
twice.
seriously. Well,
I
that's
may
why
have
we're
told you once or twice.
that's why we're a variety show.
Yeah.
That's why I let him tell you the story about people going to hell because Mike knows
Yes,
something.
because he doesn't want to say it. Yes.
No,
Yeah,
no,
it's very tricky there.
no. I'm not exaggerating when I say that that I've never seen so many angry people who want to stop everyone else from talking.
Yeah.
You can definitely have, it's okay, in my personal opinion, to have strong opinions. I don't like what you're saying. Well, I don't like what you're saying either. And your mother dresses you funny. Okay. But this thing of stopping the other person from talking at all, they kept trying to take votes 2 weeks ago to stop the presentation. What the heck are you talking about? Stop. They've been invited to make a present. Well, that's for the side that's against the levy. Yeah, that's why they were invited. Yeah. Well, they must be stopped immediately. Hey. What country did you grow up in?
Yes. No, listen, this reminds me of if you've ever been to somebody's house where they somehow don't discipline their children because they're worried that their children won't be their friends when they get to be teenagers or something, you get an idea here. And those children usually rule the home with anger and petulance and just general overall bad behavior. Well, that's what was going on here. These people weren't getting their way and they were throwing temper tantrums. They
really were. He's not exaggerating. I've never seen anything like it.
It was pathetic.
They kept trying to stop the procedure. Okay, little inside baseball. This is a show, after all, about Josephine County politics. You might expect a little bit of inside baseball. No soccer. This is American politics. So, and no blue berets either, Mike. Stop wearing that blue beret. So, at one point, Joseph Rice had made a proposal. He said, I move that we vote on the following question, the following statement. We're paraphrasing, obviously. The following statement: Josephine County Republican Central Committee opposes measure 1766. 1766 or 17666, depending on whether you want a joke or not, is the safety levy or the wasting money.
Whether or not you're going to hell.
Yes, that's right. Exactly right. Okay, that's as far as I get. So, and so right away, the people who are for the levy said, that's confusing. It says that this group opposes measure 1766, and people around the room are going, I understand that. No, I don't know. People won't know how to vote. They won't know how to vote. I mean, you're supposedly sophisticated people.
There was all kinds of, I want to amend that, and then I'm going to counter amend it or whatever. Of course, I'm not getting the parliamentary procedure correctly. I'm not getting the terminology. Obviously, it can get pretty confusing, or you can make it pretty confusing and complicated.
That's what they were doing. It was obvious that's what they were doing. Yes, go ahead.
Yes.
Well, so here's this thing, and it says,
and this was.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No,
it's that delay.
Oh no, you go.
Oh, okay, all right. So basically, what it said is they didn't use the word red. We oppose measure 1766. Any questions in our audience? Well, they had lots of shouted questions. That doesn't make any sense, and no one will understand it.
Oh, and there was a couple of people saying that, oh, you can't do that. That's against the bylaws somehow, and they were going to parse the language of the thing there. Listen, here's what the bottom line was. They were trying to take a poll of the room. Okay, who's for the levy? Who's for the Republican Party coming out for or against the levy? And, they were going to have, a polling of the room at some point there. There was no getting out of it. Okay. So it didn't matter whether you voted for it or against it. You were going to find out what the flavor was in the entire room. And, they did. And some of the people immediately stormed out.
So this is what the original story was about that I did so long ago at the weekly business session and said, this is what the eyewitnesses said, because it bothers me. Republicans, Democrats, independents, whatever they are, libertarians. It bothers me that there's a free and open process. You take a vote. You decide what you want to say, as we've tried to do with the levy again and again and again. And they say, no, you obviously don't understand. They were saying the same thing. People don't understand. Sure, they understand. No, they're all confused. No, they're not confused. They're not. Do you say yes or no to this? And if you say, yes, I agree with the statement, that means you oppose the levy. Oh, no, that's too conflicting. No, everybody understood in the room. And those who said, well, they just don't understand. What, you don't understand? It says, do you agree with this statement? No, our bylaws say you have to say yes, no, or abstain. Yes, no, or abstain about the question. The question is, the statement is, we oppose the levy. What's hard about that? No, and afterwards, Roy Lindsay is still going on and on and on, trying to convince me you've had an illegal vote. This vote is illegal. Roy, what do people in the room want? Well, it's an illegal vote. Roy, what are the people in the room telling you? It's still illegal. Roy, they voted. You lost. Get over it. Or drop out of the party.
Yeah,
or is it just me?
That's basically your choice. And no, it isn't. And here's the interesting thing. Now, we say that this is an 80-20 vote situation, but it was only 80-20 because an additional almost 10% abstained. In other words, they probably were against the levy, but they didn't want to say it. They didn't want to appear as though somehow they might be perceived as being anti-law enforcement. And so it would have been 90-10 for crying out loud.
Here's the craziest part about that. It was a secret ballot. They had taken an earlier vote where people stood up and were counted. They stood up in the room. They insisted that this be, who insisted on this? That it must be a secret ballot. Really? Okay, all right, you want to have a secret ballot, fine. But how the heck are you going to take a stand as a political party if you have to take a secret ballot? You're not taking much of a stand there, pal. Republicans, hello. I'm not a Republican, but I mean, you stand for something, right? You stand for, let me see if I can guess what Republicans stand for. Lower taxes. No, they don't. Fiscal conservatism. Apparently not. They stand against the Democrat Party. They definitely don't do that. Because we had this debate at one time where the heads of both parties were there. And I said to both of them, I said, can you identify the difference in Josephine County between the two parties? And they couldn't. They said, well, there is not much difference. There's not much difference between Republicans and Democrats in Josephine County. That was for me. If I'm not going to be part of a party that takes a stand, well, they left me.
Yeah.
What's the purpose of your party, Democrats, if you don't run anybody? What's the purpose of your party, Republicans, if you don't stand? I mean, there's a list of virtues of Republicans. Cool. I'd like to see them. Oh, it's on a piece of paper. It's like going to a county commissioner's meeting. Well, it says here you must be transparent. It says here you must be, a good public servant. Hey, you're not doing any of those things. When we go to the budget committee, and there's a meeting tomorrow, first meeting of the budget committee. You don't get a chance to talk. You only get a chance to listen at this one. And they're going to make clear what their goals are. Goal number one has been for years, complete transparency and involving the public in the process. Every year I get up and say, you've already failed at goal number one. Where's this document, this document, this document? And now you want me to sit down. We already know what you're going to say, Mr. Matthews. Sit down. That's not transparency. That's not including the public. Every year they fail at their number one priority. What? So, Mike, you used to be a Republican. What are the priorities? If you remember, I'm sure you do. Do they remember? What are the priorities of the Republican Party?
Well, generally, I mean, the party stands for conservative values. And generally speaking, these are smaller government, less taxes, less regulation, and that type of thing. And as of late here, the past 20 years have been pretty murky on this. They're since 1994, you had this revolution of sorts, where the first time in 40 years the Republicans had taken over the Congress, and so we expected great things from them, and then we discovered it wasn't very long before they started making backroom deals and forgetting where they came from, even though these people had been injected in there as freshmen. And they learned the process pretty fast, and they fell into line behind the elders, and started doing business as usual. And so after years of waiting for the right people to get elected and thinking, well, only now it's going to happen, you can't help but be a little bit disillusioned. Well, okay, in 2000 we get George Bush, and not long after, a Republican Congress and Senate, and we have them in a majority for a number of years until 2006. And what did they get done? Just less of what the Democrats would have done under the same circumstances. So it's so that builds some frustration. Finally, I said, "That's it. I'm done. I'm done. I am not gonna be part of a party who." It is not, that doesn't hold my values as their values. Well, that doesn't hold the party's values as their own values. To me, last night, there were three main stories. Number one is, and this extends into today, where's the press coverage of this important meeting? How come there's nothing in local press? And who benefits from keeping you in the dark? Okay, well, that's number one. Okay, wait a minute. That's an easy one to answer. The majority of the voter registration in this county is Republican.
Right.
So of course they would want to suppress the fact that the Republican Party is endorsing a no vote on 1766, because they don't want people to know that.
That's pathetic.
Of course it is.
That leads then to the second. I'm going to end with the good news. That it leads to the second thing. This increasing trend among the naysayers. We're not the naysayers. We're saying good things about things that could be done in our county, and we're standing for fiscal conservatism. The naysayers are the ones that not just saying nay, okay with that. Okay, horses do it. No, the thing that is a negative is these people, they not only want to crush all opposition, they don't want the opposition to be even heard. They were trying to shout down these guys when they were invited to make a presentation. What kind of Americans is that? What kind of Republicans is that? This is a disturbing trend among those who are stealing signs, that are storing them in Simon Hare's headquarters. That was a couple of years ago. The people who they'll stop you with anything that they can find. Well, that's just totally a lie, because it's just like ISIS. Hey, don't be telling me that kind of stuff. I don't believe you when you say that. They'll say anything. I know it sounds like, oh, everybody says, no, I'm really mean it. I mean, they were trying to have a vote, and these guys were doing everything that they could to stop the American process, and I find that reprehensible. That's story number two. Story number three is, there's a party in this town who actually stood up for something, whether they're geniuses or lunkheads. They stood up for something They drew a line in the sand. They say, this is where we are. This is who we are. And we're doing it anonymously. Oh, no. But
Right.
this is who we are. And this is the stand that we're taking. And I'm not going to say congratulations for being brave, because you're supposed to be like this, you guys.
Right.
But it's a good thing that they said, this party, some party, any party stands for something.
Right. And in case this may sound like the whole thing, this is a negative story. No, this is a very positive story, because you know what? Some people took a stand, and it was for actual Republican values, and they won out.